Hello all, Kato here. I've been a massive fan of Final Fantasy Tactics since purchasing my first copy over 20 years ago. In spite of the algorithm punishing me every time I deviate away from Fallout and Elder Scrolls, I've got so many tips to share about the Ivalice Chronicles. This is also an invitation to you to share your tips and tricks in the comments below to help out your fellow players. There are a lot of subtle changes with this release that might fly under the radar, as well as some great classic tips that still work, so here are 30 tips and tricks I wish I knew earlier, and also some I found in my old notes for Final Fantasy Tactics, now new and improved with the Ivalice Chronicles. This first tip is for those of you on the fence who found yourselves here. Do you want to command dragons and unlock their secret moves while riding a chocobo into battle? What about a monk who can recruit humans in the field, big boss style? Maybe a dragoon that uses MP as an overshield? A white mage with a gun? Yes, all of these builds are possible. If this is the kind of customization that makes your brain chemicals fizzy, there's no better time to try out Final Fantasy Tactics. While the 12 Zodiacs are thematic to the story of this game, there's also a complex mechanic related to them with each unit on the field. When you start the game, you even get to input your birthday, which determines Ramza's sign. If you're just looking for a quick answer to what signs are most beneficial for Ramza, go with Capricorn if you want to play offensively, and Pisces if you wish to play defensively during story missions. A unit's zodiac sign mainly affects the success rate of actions between compatible units. Now that I've told you all that, I have to admit that I barely pay attention to this mechanic every time I play. If you are interested, the Chronicle in the game's menus can give you a breakdown on the zodiacs and how they work in battle. Even so, we don't really need that anymore because targeting a foe now displays a zodiac modifier right next to your success chance. When looking for your perfect recruits at the Warriors Guild, you can re-roll the roster by backing out to the cities menu and then go back into the Warriors Guild to see a fresh set of recruits. Bravery and Faith will have a rough cap of around 70 at the guild, so that's what to look for in potential recruits. If you have already been leveling someone with low bravery, don't think about replacing them just yet. I'll go into more detail about Bravery and Faith in just a little bit. It was such a relief to find out that the unit limit has been more than doubled to a max of 50. With this much space, you'll be able to collect all the optional characters and have a ton of monster pets too. Guest characters will occasionally join your team throughout the story, sometimes temporarily, sometimes to become a permanent ally later. While it's good to have extra support on the field for story missions, sometimes guest characters can be a burden. In Chapter 1, both Delita and Argath have the items command in their secondary, and yes, they do dig into your own potion reserves for healing themselves too. On the upside, a lot of guest characters don't have a death timer when they get KO'd. If guests fall in battle, you'll usually have the option of just leaving them there and carrying on with the fight. Outside of battles, the equipment that guests are wearing is also able to be unequipped. I took Argath's boots as soon as he joined and put them on one of my chemists for a more mobile healer instead. For no particular reason, I also like to imagine Argath being without actual shoes the whole time, ruining his pompous little feet while he's traveling with us. If you are looking for more unique recruits like Cloud, Beowulf, and Construct 8 to fill out your team, keep checking back at the Clockwork City of Gog to trigger most of these side missions after Chapter 4 begins. Ramza's job commands include unique moves only he can use, and are trained with Squire job points. Early on, you'll gain access to Tailwind and Chant, both quite helpful in their own right, but keep checking back when you reach new chapters as he'll get increasingly powerful moves to unlock. On the subject of squires, just about every ability a squire has is useful, but if you don't get anything else from them, be sure to save up for JP boost and equip that as your support ability. This will make leveling all future jobs easier for your entire field team. Focus is a great one too if you plan on power leveling jobs, which I'll get into a bit later. As for chemists, their items command will serve you throughout the whole game. Spells have a chance of failure based on just about every factor you can think of, and it is the worst feeling when your white mage fails a raise spell. In fact, the only thing that spells have over items is that they don't need line of sight and can hit multiple targets. If you are going for the minimum necessary for the item's command, go for Potion, Phoenix Down, Antidote, and High Potion. One of the early reaction abilities that are incredibly helpful is Auto Potion from the Chemist, which, as expected, has a chance to use a potion immediately after taking damage. One cool little detail about Auto Potion is that it uses the weakest potion in your inventory. So, if high potions become available at shops, buying a bunch of those and selling all your basic potions will cause Auto Potion to use high potions instead. The same can be done with X potions when they become available. Each subsequent class after Squire and Chemist have their own gimmick, and you'll probably be able to guess if you've played any Final Fantasy game previously. However, once you start combining abilities from multiple jobs, then the real fun starts. A knight's Art of War commands, for example, can break equipment or lower stats with Rend. Now, say you swap to the Archer job and then set Art of War as your secondary commands. Now, with this Archer, you can break your target's gear and stats from a safe distance. If you happen to add the Archer's concentration support ability to this, suddenly you'll have one of the most devastating archers the enemy will face. Thanks to the speechcraft-based orator job, nearly everyone who isn't a boss is recruitable during combat. Entice targets include both humans and monsters that you see in battle. One heartless way I like to use the orator's skill is recruiting humans just to take all their equipment and dismiss them. On the monster side, having one monster and passing time by moving around the map will cause it to reproduce, sometimes giving you a higher tier of that monster type. Say you entice a pig to join your team with your orator. Once you pass enough time, maybe doing errands for the local tavern, those unit spaces will fill up indefinitely with the offspring of that pig. Occasionally, you can get even more powerful variants of that monster family, like swine and wild boar, which can in turn produce more. I bet you didn't expect the ability to become a pig wrangler, but that's pretty much what can happen if they're left unchecked. Why breed so many monsters? Well, let's get into that in the next tip. To the surprise of no one, the thief job is able to steal money, equipment, and be charming. These aren't the only tricks up a thief's sleeve, however. They also have one of the best support abilities known as Poach. Slaying a monster with Poach will remove them from the field, and you'll obtain a regular or rare carcass from doing so. These carcasses will show up at the poacher's dens to be processed in the trade cities like Dorter, where you can then spend some gil for the unsettling tradesmen there to transform them into an item or sell the carcass instead. So you know how I mentioned all those piggies earlier? Wild boars are, ironically, only found through breeding. And all of the monsters in the pig family can be poached into a useful equipment item. Keep an eye out for the big monsters too, like dragons, hydras, Marlboros, and behemoths, as they'll all often have something worth poaching them for. This game has a plethora of numbers and stats to dig into, but I just want to distinguish the basic numbers that go up. EXP, the first number that pops up on a successful ability, will affect your character's overall level, which has a maximum of 99. With an experience level, your character gets stat growth based on their current job, and their job point gain will increase slightly. Your highest level character will also scale random encounters and monsters. Job points are the second number that appears on a successful ability and contribute to the specific job your character is using. Each job's max level is 8, and job levels are mainly just a requirement to unlock other jobs further down the tree. Job points are arguably more important for character customization and progression, and can be accumulated from a whole lot of things. Errands from local taverns, other teammates, and of course your own successful abilities. So the next tip will dive a bit deeper into job point gain. Like I mentioned, job point gain is determined by the success of any ability. The amount of damage or healing does not matter. A simple success is enough. That makes this an easy system to exploit for power leveling purposes. You can make your own units punching bags for job point gain if you want to. To set yourself up for some simple JP farming, you can save the final enemy on the map, surround them, and use abilities indefinitely until you get whatever amount of JP you desire for your current jobs. The focus ability from Squire is the most ideal for leveling JP because it is an always successful self-cast and has a quick animation. Another option with an added benefit is using the Steel Gill ability of the Thief, as it is the cheapest to unlock, doesn't deal damage, and will result in both JP and Gil on success. Units do also earn job points from their allies. Whenever one of your character earns JP in battle, a quarter of that will be gained by your other units for that job. So if you have just squires and chemists on your team, they'll be gaining JP from each other in a way that'll let you sprinkle abilities from either job quicker. These bonus JP are gained even if the character has yet to unlock that job. So if you've been bringing your ninja everywhere and suddenly decide to diversify your black mage, they'll have a pile of JP waiting under ninja once they get there. Bravery is the stat that determines the prowess of the martial classes, like knights, archers, monks, etc. The higher your bravery, the higher your success rate and damage with various physical-based moves, which also includes a chance to use reactions. The singular reason you would want low bravery is the treasure hunter movement ability from the chemist job. For whatever reason, treasure hunter with low bravery increases the chances of finding a rare item on a treasure tile. Bravery can hit an out of battle maximum of 97, which will make your melee fighters formidable, to say the least, against their opponents. When recruiting for martial jobs, look at a starting bravery of 70 or higher. Faith is the stat that determines power and success chance of spells and magic, both the ones you cast and the spells that are cast on you. Unlike bravery, faith can be reduced to 0 during battle, which will give the unit atheist status and make them completely immune to all spells. Beware that atheist status also negates healing and beneficial magics, so have items handy if you have an atheist on your team. Unlike other stats, bravery and faith can both be modified long-term if you have an orator on your team. Praise and preach can raise these stats by 4 points per cast, while intimidate and enlighten can lower them by 20 points per cast. It's worth mentioning here, and you'll probably see it, but if a character's bravery goes below 10 during battle, they do turn into a chicken and regenerate 1 bravery per turn. Adjusting stats permanently this way takes time, because the permanent change outside of battle will be just 1 point per cast. If you're into modifying your units this way, beware of extremely low bravery and extremely high faith.
My hands shake. My body trembles ceaselessly. When did I become so afraid of battle?
The game will warn you at several points ahead of time, but if you have a faith 95 or higher or a bravery of 5 or lower out of battle, that unit will desert the team by either becoming a pacifist or a coward. Don't worry too much about enemies causing desertions. These extremes are much more likely to be player inflicted. Final Fantasy Tactics thankfully has an optimized feature for equipment, so you don't have to worry about the tedium as much for equipping your whole team. When you're in the outfitter, you can use the fitting room for this, and the gear will equip upon payment. Job change optimization is also an option from the gameplay settings, and will save you some time as well. Something to keep in mind, however, is that Optimize seems to prioritize damage, protection, and health. So if you're trying to focus on movement, magic, or speed on a unit, double check that they're getting the attire you truly want for them. Saving your unit's loadout as a combat set is a new feature added to the Ivalice Chronicles, and I couldn't find much of a use case for it until I realized it includes their gear, job, and abilities. Combat sets let you save up to 3 loadouts per character, and once you start number crunching for attack power, magic power, speed, and other stats, the game's optimized function for gear becomes less and less helpful. The most use I've personally gotten from combat sets is having 1 loadout for job point leveling and 1 loadout for story missions. Short on gil from outfitting your teams and supplying their potion addiction? First, you can sell all the armor and weapons you've upgraded past, which tend to quickly get outperformed if you're doing a lot of story missions. Minus accessories, most of them are pretty useful. Second, thieves can steal an infinite amount of gil given enough time, and it's one of the cheapest abilities in the game JP-wise. Steal chance as well as results are modified by your thief's speed and character level, so if you've got Ramza along, use Tailwind on your thief each round to get more and more gil each time. One of the least forgiving parts of Final Fantasy Tactics is that worn equipment can be stolen or broken in this game, with the Knight and Thief abilities respectively. Unless you go back to a previous save or checkpoint, that item is gone forever. The good news is that the player can be just as cruel and break or steal enemy gear too. So at least it's fair in that sense. If you are just fed up with knights breaking your stuff, the Safeguards support ability from the chemist job can protect your equipment if you are wearing something extremely rare. If you do plan for taking equipment losses by buying some extras though, you can save that support ability slot for some far more powerful options. The female exclusivity of some items is no longer present in the Ivalice Chronicles. Male characters can wear the exceptionally powerful ribbons, perfume accessories, and wield handbags as they see fit. Ramza has always been powerful, but now he can have constant re-raise and full status immunity thanks to this change. Rush and Throwstone are the first couple fundament abilities that you get for your squires. These are fairly weak in the damage department, as you probably found out. However, they tend to be more accurate and are incredibly effective at knocking foes off of ledges and high points. An enemy casting a spell can also be cancelled if they're pushed in this way. Rush and Throw Stone can also be used to get an ally out of sleep, charm, or confusion conditions without taking a huge chunk out of their HP or incurring a counterattack. With the remaster, you've surely noticed the turn stack on the left side of the battle screen. It's nice not needing submenus anymore to find out when you're getting nuked with a spell. This makes it much easier to check if your opponent will be moving before your charge spell or attack goes off, as it also shows where you'll be in the stack before you confirm. Selecting a character in that stack that's casting will also thankfully show their target area, so you may just get a chance to adjust your position before it hits. When you have the health bars displayed during a battle, I'd originally assumed that the number next to the health bar showed their unit number. Well, unit numbers aren't really a thing anymore, and this number actually indicates who's next on the turn order. At a glance, you'll be able to see your charge timer versus their turn order quickly. While it may not seem crucial at the start, you'll see your first counterattack from monsters in the initial couple battles. Nearly all monsters have a melee counterattack, so be sure your up-close fighter can take both a standard attack and a counterattack in one round if you wish to keep them upright. Shield parry and evasion thankfully are factored in when you get countered too, so your knights and other shield-bearing units should have an easier time getting around this. Some later classes have weapons with a 2-tile reach, like polearms and rods, which will let them completely ignore counterattacks at full reach. This game will now let you place markers on the battle map when in view battlefield or movement mode. These markers are helpful if you need to be cautious of traps, or you have some foreknowledge of loot that your treasure hunters can pick up on specific tiles. Not only can you flee random encounters when they pop up now, but you can also search for enemies if you stand on these encounter nodes whenever you'd like. This mainly means that you don't have to do the map dance anymore, and instead can fight and find treasure in places that you want to be. Being able to flee on the spot too means you can do tavern errands unimpeded, and those are readily available job points. You'll see the enemies flank you at every opportunity because side and back attacks always have better chances to hit. With a little preparation, you'll be able to do the same to them. Checking your facing at the end of your move will give you a chance to evade or parry an incoming attack during the following enemy turns. At any point, when you initiate your unit's move action, you can also check enemy units' movement range by hovering over them with the cursor. Moving to the edge of their movement range will give you the best positioning and give the enemy a penalty to physical attacks when they close the distance, as long as you're facing them, of course. If there is also a corpse nearby, you can use that to shield a specific side while the body is present. Who said meat shields need to be alive? After a character has been KO'd for 3 turns, they transform into a crystal or treasure chest. The chest, of course, will carry an item or equipment, but the crystal has some great utility. By default, these crystals will fully recover HP and MP. However, if the crystal is left by a human, you might get the chance to learn a handful of abilities from the unit that died. Since the original, it's been all of the abilities listed, not just picking one. And as an extra benefit, these crystals also generate light for the optional dungeon towards the end of the game. So keep an eye on those human death timers to ensure you get some free skills. Many spells are cast in a cross pattern, leaving space to get out of the way of a blast of black magic or sneak your way into a white magic spell. Enemy casters can sometimes be exploited if they cast a damaging spell on you. If you're in the center of that cross, that spell is likely set to unit, which means it'll follow you. If this is the case, and you get a movement before the spell is cast, you can walk straight into your enemies and make the damage to you collateral for them. With the reset move function, you can do some pretty clever scouting and range checking before you confirm your position. In an offensive sense, you can make sure your ranged move isn't obstructed by something after you reposition. There are a couple of things that'll stop you from resetting your move. If you stop on a trap or treasure tile, or have some kind of movement-based effect when you stop, that'll prevent you from using reset move. This is to maintain some kind of trade-off, I suppose, but it is worth knowing all the same. When facing undead monsters, like just about every Final Fantasy, they're vulnerable to curative items and spells. A Phoenix Down will KO nearly every undead monster no problem. You will be told a fair amount into Chapter 2 though that undead do have a chance to reanimate after their KO timer drains. To avoid this altogether, bringing someone who has Poach equipped from the thief job that I mentioned earlier will harvest the body, removing it from the field and stopping undead regeneration. Are there any tips and tricks you learned or kept in the old archives from Final Fantasy Tactics? Please share in the comments. As I said at the jump, this isn't my niche at all, but I've punished myself before with other Square Enix games like Final Fantasy VII Remake and Legend of Mana because I just enjoy them a lot. So if you feel like sticking around, you can find those in the playlist on screen or the links below. If you found this guide useful, entertaining, or a little of both, please do whatever you see fit to show that. Patreon is one of the ways you can show your support, and doing so will get you a spot on screen along with these high bravery recruits, including Wasteland Legends Sven. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Kato, and I hope you enjoy your adventure across Ivalice.